Hello, folks. You're all very welcome back to the Celtic Soul podcast. I'm Andrew Milne, and thank you very much for tuning in again. And thank you very much for those who tuned in last week for, I suppose, a great chat we had with Brendan Ogle. Brendan, Dundalk man, told us about the plight of his local club, Dundalk FC, in trouble at the moment, relegated. But I think that's, as he said, that's the last of his worries at the moment as they try to save the club. He's a member of the Supporters Trust there, so the best of luck, Brendan. Brendan took us on his Celtic journey from Dundalk. His first game was Celtic v Dundalk in the European Cup. I think it was back in '79. And then Brendan travelled on to London to work, up to Glasgow, Motherwell, Wisher, and all around Europe following Celtic. And he had some great stories. And something that wasn't mentioned on the podcast, Brendan was instrumental in a meeting that took place in Dundalk with many Celtic supporters from around the country when the Irish supporters played the part in kicking out the old board. When Matt MacGowan and Brendan Sweeney and the boys came over for a meeting, all clubs in Ireland voted in favour to back the rebels. I think bar one club in the day, and they went back to their members, and they also came back then. So there was a full support of the rebels from Ireland, but you would expect nothing less. So, Brendan, we didn't get to speak about that, but maybe we will on the next podcast. It was Jim Greenan from Monaghan CSC who was at that meeting, who reminded me of your contribution back in those days. But I expect nothing less from you, Brendan, because after chatting to you about your trade union involvement, your involvement in the Right to Water, and the Home Sweet Home campaign, we would expect nothing less than to be involved in getting rid of an old board and making way for a new era of Celtic Football Club. You know, that club that never died. We never let it die, unlike our neighbours across the road. So we can be always proud of that, Brendan. And it's great to hear that you played such an important part in that, and it was held in your hometown. Brendan also was an election candidate in the European elections, and here in Ireland now we now face a general election, and it was very interesting to get Brendan's take on national politics and indeed the political landscape in Ireland and the changing political landscape in Ireland. So if you haven't tuned in, folks, have a listen to that. I think you might enjoy it. Today on the episode, I'll be chatting to somebody who's an old friend. I've seen his band perform many a time. They're one of my favourite bands out there on the Irish, I suppose, the Irish scene. Folk and roll, the Wakes, the Glasgow Irish. The Wakes are probably to Glasgow what the Pogues were to London for the Irish community. Glasgow is steeped in Irish music and Irish bands, but the Wakes are kind of unique. They write some brilliant original stuff. Um, they don't play as much as I would like. So Paul will maybe explain to us why they don't play as often as we would all like, because when they do play, they sell out. They sell out the place. Um, you know, yeah, Paul, we will get to talking to that. Before I chat to Paul, I just want to say a big thank you to Paddy's Point Bar and Lasagna for their continued support. Rory and Hazel, great supporters of everything we do on the podcast and the Fanzine. It's the home of the Paddy's Point Celtic Supporters Club. So if you're out in the Costas, in the Lasagna area, pop in. Music 7 nights a week. All Celtic games shown live in their own area for the Celtic supporters who get priority no matter what game of football is on. And there's also a brilliant bar menu, great food. So you get good food, you get Celtic, and a bit of entertainment. So what more would you want for a night out and coming from the beach or the golf course? So Hazel, Rory, thank you so much for your continued support. If you would like to sponsor the podcast, if you're a Celtic supporters club, an individual Celtic fan that would like to sponsor us, or a business who likes what we do, has a Celtic mind, or just probably thinks the way we think, get in touch. You can email us at info@celticfanzine.com, or you can contact us on the messenger services on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So you can find us on all them. The last episode came out last Friday. Uh, Anyone who saw it or listened to it will know how much I was buzzing after the cup semi-final and the performance against Leipzig in the Champions League. But Sunday, I travelled over to Kilmarnock. It's a ground I have mixed memories of. I've seen us dominate and win. Last season, I seen us knocked out of the League Cup final. Um, so that made the Aberdeen semi-final win all the more sweeter. We now face Rangers in the final, or Debt Rangers, as they are known, or Sevco, or whatever you want to call them these days, the tribute act. But that's one to look forward to on the 15th of December. But on Sunday, um, we had to work hard for our win. It was a tough one. It's a horrible pitch. When we beat them to win the league, it was a wet night. It was raining. The ball seemed to move around the pitch, but on Sunday it just seemed to stick. It was like, it's hard to describe it. But it was hard for coming off the high of the Champions League. You know, Aberdeen had won the day before. We needed to win to stay on top in goal difference, and we did. So now it's us and Aberdeen stretching out ahead. Our rivals across the city, the Rangers, didn't see the game, but listening to reports, um, after they went 1-0 up, they shut up shop, and Hearts probably should have got a share of the spoils if what I read and what I hear is to be believed. So troubling times still across the city, and long may they continue. I just want to also give a big shout out to my local team, Drogheda United, who at the same time as Celtic were beating Kilmarnock 2-0, they were beating Derry City. And I know we've a lot of listeners in Derry. I'm not having a pop at Derry. Fair play to Derry. They'll come again. But this was Drogheda's day. And I'm so glad for the ultras who had put so much effort into the displays, and all the regulars who travel, home and away around the country. Great to see tens of thousands of people exiting the town for the Aviva, and the celebrations went into Monday morning. I arrived back from Kilmarnock, and the town was bonkers. Great to see the pubs all packed and nightclubs and everybody enjoying themselves. And I'm sure the early houses on Monday morning there was a few phone calls into work, a few sick heads, I'd say, but well done, Drogheda United. And before I wrap up, on last weekend, I want to say a big thanks to Johnny. I missed the supporters bus in Glasgow. I knew it was going to be tight on the flight. Contacted Johnny, good friend, picked me up in Glasgow. We listened to Studio One tunes the whole way down to Kilmarnock. He's great. He's a great playlist in the car. Reggae, ska, soul. It was just brilliant. And then to top it all off, he dropped me back to the airport, made me fly, got home, and witnessed the celebrations in Drogheda. So a good weekend all round for the town and for Celtic. Um, yeah, what else? Yeah, Australia, the UK, and the US. Draw the fans travel from them places. So fair play to them, and they're on the way back now. So word coming home. Fair play to us, especially Garto coming back from Australia. Bumped into him in the cross last Friday night. Great to see you. And I hope everything goes well. And there's so many of Celtic boys over in Australia, especially the young troop now. So I hope you're getting looked after over there in Melbourne and Perth and Sydney by the older Celtic crew who, they had to be looked after first. So remind them of that. Folks, thanks very much for everyone who supported the online shop this week. All the orders are gone out, most of them anyway. So if you want to support us, you can do so by visiting the website. And on the website, as well as the online shop, you'll find blogs, news, all the podcasts, all our YouTube stuff, and all the information on our upcoming events. So, and you can buy a T-shirt, a fanzine, subscribe, and you'll never miss a copy. Or if you just want to donate, you can donate for a price of a pint of a coffee, and all the money goes towards our media platform, which is independent. And we wouldn't be able to do it without your support. So thanks very much. Anything else? Yeah, the next one, Thailand, folks. I said it last week. We're nearly across the line with all the entertainment and events. We're just putting the tickets in place now, and they will be on sale at the end of the month. And we have in the podcast, we have a gig we're going to announce as well with Paul Sheridan, and we're excited about that one. So without further ado, let's talk to Paul. Paul Sheridan, you're very welcome to the Celtic Soul podcast. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Very excited to spend my night time doing this. This is excellent.
Um, well, we spent a few nights together, but I can't believe it's took so long to get you on the podcast. Can't believe I never had you on during lockdown when we were doing nothing.
I know it's see, I think this is the last time I was using Zoom was during lockdown, and I dusted off the Zoom to get back on. Even got my pilot's headset on.
Yeah, you look like
I'm
you
going
look fairly Tom Cruisey there in Top Gun.
comparisons in there.
For those listening on audio, Paul is not in an aeroplane. He's in the comfort of his own home. Paul, we record the podcast during the international break, which will go out this week. Um, we've beaten Kilmarnock 2-0 on Sunday on that awful plastic pitch. I always remember Morty McCarthy from the Sultans of Ping FC. He was the drummer, but he also brought out a number of fanzines. He had a music one called Sunny Days, and he had the Cork City fanzine way back in the day, and it was called No More Plastic Pitches. But yeah, in Scotland we still have plastic pitches at the highest level. Um, wasn't as good as the hammering we gave Aberdeen or the performance against Leipzig. That Aberdeen win, of course, sets up a game against the Rangers. We were rooting for Motherwell, but that didn't turn out. We've had three really good performances out of four in the Champions League. Um, so there's a good feel factor around Celtic. I dip in and out for the games, Paul. I don't have to live there when we lose or when we win. So, how has it been for the faithful in Glasgow who live with
Well,
it 7 days a week?
well, it's been. If you think about the past year when Angela left, there was that little dip. Then when Brendan came in, it was having to expect to see what was going to happen. Could he deliver? And then, don't worry, be happy. As the season went on, we came through. It's been it's been good. There's a good bit of self-belief about Celtic just now going into a cup final. The performances in Europe. As Paul McStay would say, there's a buzz about the place. So it's been good. I mean, the media, I think, has turned a little bit more. They're realising, just how strong Celtic can have been in at home domestically, and in Europe. And I think that's also been, taking note down south. So wherever Celtic are doing well, you've got a bit of pride in your step, in your own doorstep.
Yeah, well, there's always been that down south. If I think back to the Martin O'Neill days, like everybody was beating us, but we beat everybody. So we do have to travel down south on this Champions League journey against Villa, but hopefully all going well, and with the confidence we have that we're in the playoffs at least because the top eight would be reaching for the stars, but to be in the playoffs like after I suppose on paper we've played the better teams, and it looks like it, it, with the exception of Villa, we're going to be playing teams that we will fancy ourselves against. But Bruges beat Villa penalty, I know, dodgy penalty, but you know they proved in the past that they can get results.
Yeah, certainly. On paper, you'd expect to beat a team like FC Bruges. You don't want to go in overly confident about our performances because we've looked at Champions League groups in the past and thought, oh, we'll take them, we'll beat them, and then it's not been successful. But I think there's a different belief about the Celtic team just now. When we went that goal down, we still were galvanised. The crowd got behind us. We picked ourselves up, and then the second half, the other team couldn't live with us. So we're hoping that we do the right thing in the games at home and the games away. And when we go into the game against Villa, we're in a good position. But that comes from just the hard work that's been done on the field and off the field as well, and scouting our opponents and not going down to an early goal. And then if we do go down to a goal, being able to react and get the positive comeback that we're looking for and we expect. I mean, I remember the days when Celtic were a real force in Europe in the early 2000s, particularly at home. The trip to Seville in 2003 as well, and some really standout performances. So I'm hoping that the next few weeks are going to see us continue on that crest of that good performance that we've had so far in the Champions League, and if we got to win ugly, then we've got to win ugly. But be all and end all is getting the results.
Yeah, and Paul, like you're a musician, right? So you're around the scene a long time. With so many clubs, music and football go together. So your journey is kind of linked. As a lot of people in Glasgow, music is a big part of the match day. Um, and in a city like Glasgow, can you tell us about, you know, your football and musical journey, from a young age?
Yeah, I mean, my earliest memories as a kid is actually my dad singing me the Johnny Thompson song at the side of the bed and singing another song that was to the tune of the Merry Ploughboy, but it was on the 25th of May in far off Lisbon town. The game was set, the teams were met, and all the chips were down. And then when you kind of getting older and going to matches and buying the tapes on the way to the games as well. So that was always part of that whole match day experience as well, and part of the as Celtic fans, it's you have the Celtic. I think it's such a rich history of song that's linked to the club and the successes, the triumphs, and the tragedies of the club as well. Um, Writing later on in life when I was like kind of writing songs, what I sort of know about, and I was writing songs about Jimmy Johnson because I'm from Livingston myself, and Jimmy was he was a local hero in every sense of the word. So going on that journey, and I think that with my own sort of influences, Celtic has been a massive influence in terms of my songwriting, um, the sort of that area of subject matter for each song. In Glasgow as well, you know, the 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 game doesn't just stop at 90 minutes. We celebrate our successes, we celebrate our losses as well, in the only way that Celtic fans know, which is going into the pubs and playing the tapes on the way home or the the Spotify lists these days. But they're inextricably linked, and really there's that kind of rich vein that we tap into. And for us as the band, we've kind of dipped into that in the past and continue to do so. I mean it's they're so closely linked to each other. It's songs that were sung 40 years ago and 50 years ago and longer and are kind of kept on going to this day. And I think it's a massive part. I think it's one of the things that kind of separates us from many of the other football teams in the country and across Britain.
Yeah, it's such a. I suppose the links with Ireland as well are like are so strong, um, and even now I know people who and I hate the argument, is it a Scottish club? Is it an Irish club? Is it an Irish institution in Scotland? And you get all this, but like you can't rewrite history, and the links between here and over there for Celtic are just they're so tight, and you, like you only have to stand, as you say, in a pub on match day, and here, even if it's a song about a Celtic player, you can be sure the music has come from an old ballad or an old Irish folk song.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of new ones these days that are sung to dance tunes though as well. But
Well, that's progression.
that's progression. Yeah, you got to go. I like. I tell you though, Jota on the Wing. Uh, my wee girls love that song so much, and whenever the original comes out, they'll sing Jota on the Wing. But it break it. I can sing Henrik Larsson, "You Are My Larsson," and it takes you back to Jimmy Johnson on the Wing. But when I sing the old Jota on the Wing, it's too raw still. The fact that he was away, it's aye. But we engage, and you only have to start it off, and all of a sudden the whole place is going.
And it's funny you say like your little girls, Jota, that was their hero, because of the song, and there's so many Celtic players remembered in song, from John Thompson, and the one you wrote with Jimmy, because Jimmy is obviously not only a hero in Uddingston, he's a hero. He's one of the heroes of Celtic.
Yeah,
But
he's
my hero was probably Henrik. And probably hero is probably a wrong word, but um, when I hear Sally Pax still singing Henrik's name, it brings me back to the memories I have of him, and he was just, you know, he was just outstanding, and each generation will have a hero.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm too young for Kenny Dalglish and Jimmy. It's funny, the difference between the Lisbon Lions winning the European Cup and me being born. I'm born in 1980. It's only 13 years of a difference, which when you're older is the blink of an eye, but when you're a wee guy, 13 years just is an eternity. And it's funny because Henrik's my probably Paul McStay would have been my kind of hero as a player growing up. But then looking back, I don't think there's when I see Larson YouTube videos again, he's how good he was. And I've got so many good nights of watching him at home, at away games. He was absolute world class. And you are my Larson, King of Kings. Just it echoes back those great memories as in my twenties going to see Celtic and and just having that such a big part of your life.
Yeah, I suppose the legendary status and but like, I suppose a lot of the time when you're in the moment, it's only when they leave and they're gone, and you have, as you say, you can look on YouTube now. You have the memories. I was looking at something on YouTube today. Actually, it was a music thing, and it brought back a lot of memories. But Paul, you mentioned the Wake Star, right? And we're talking about music and football. Um, and one thing that I know, like that's missing at the moment is like, how do I put this? I got I got a sticker book today in the post from Paul from the Shamrock, a fabulous book of images of stickers. Now I only flicked through it. It came deceived in the late post. I've just flicked through it, and I remember some of the stickers I've seen. Some of them I've seen actually on poles or in places in Glasgow or when we tour Europe. But I didn't see any St. Pauli stickers. St. Pauli, where when you would go away in Europe, you would meet St. Pauli fans. We had regular articles about St. Pauli in the fanzine. Um, the Wakes played in that ground. You sang in the centre circle. I spoke to St. Pauli fans uh, who I know through meeting in Europe, through friends of mine. I spoke to one outside the ground in Dortmund. He was also in Atalanta, and I'm sure he'll be in Croatia. Uh, he's very sad that how the whole split happened of what's happened in Palestine. Um, he spoke to me off the record because he didn't want to speak on the record because you can't mention Palestine among the support. Um, this this feels to me now. I've never been to see St. Pauli, but I just from friends I've met over the years, Michael Pringle wrote regularly about his trips to St. Pauli in the fanzine. But now it's a ward that's not ushered around Celtic Park within the fans. So, and we've never addressed it on the podcast. Paul, give us your I suppose once upon a time St. Pauli and Celtic and the split.
Of the friendship that happened previously beforehand as well, and just
Yeah, well, just
addressing how how
give
it
us
kind of
the build up because there was all those Celtics and Pauli gigs in Hamburg.
I mean, as we know the kind of story of the fanzines from the Ubersteiger and Not the View, and they had the original links with the two clubs where the fans came from both sides writing letters, and there was organised matches in football in the early 90s. And from that kind of time, there grew the friendships, and as the fans, you know, people were more and more spreading between more Celtic were wearing St. Pauli stuff and more St. Pauli guys were wearing Celtic, and both kind of adopted each other as a second team, and that continued for a long, long time. And they had the Celtic St Pauli party, I think originally in the 1990s, with Erog went over and Blarney Pilgrims, and then later on they reinvigorated it again about 2004 with Shebeen and Bible Code Sundays, I think. Um, Gary was over that time, and there was a band from Germany called the Drying Wheel. So they started it up again, and they get bigger and bigger. We went over in 2008 when we first started, and we toured regularly and played regularly as well. Um, I think that there had been splits before, I think, with the Ultras group and the Green Brigade, but before around maybe 10 years ago, and that had totally drifted. But that, there's a lot of St. Pauli fans who you would know that would be Celtic and still have Celtic in the heart as well. And still a lot of Celtic fans as well who would now the way that this has happened and there's been that kind of that doesn't that ultras group in St. Pauli don't represent every single fan in St. Pauli, and that's important to know that as well. But while that seems to be the case that they've taken their side in it, there's a lot of fans who are still very pro-Palestine, but are kind of silenced because that's the way, unfortunately, it is. So while it's such a difficult situation for them to try and they've got to kind of stand up and speak out against it, but they're kind of silenced, and unfortunately, so many other groups have disbanded. Simple supporters groups have disbanded. Not necessarily Celtic fans in the groups. It's other, Catalonia's falling apart, falling away, and ones in Athens, and so it's a very, very sort of sad situation to see where that's gone. Um, I've, we've still got to play in Germany. We were never, the weeks are always on the politics in their sleeves regards Palestine. Um, but it's yeah, that split is visible. There'll still be St. Pauli fans that will come to see Celtic, and yet there'll still be fans that will go and see St. Pauli because they'll put aside, they'll there's no way people back in Chelsea. That's not what I'm saying, but they have uh, people have still have friendships there that goes beyond the football. If you know what I mean, it's they say, well, they won't accept that that's the standard, and they won't accept that that's acceptable. So it's very, very sad to see that split has happened, but it's a very visible split just now in the groups. Um, Weeks have always been pro-Palestine. We've written songs. In fact, in 2013, we were involved in the From Bethlehem to Belfast, which was a group to bring over five-a-side footballers from Palestine to play in Belfast. And there were, the St. Pauli group were all there as well. So this isn't, this is something that's kind of has happened, and it has to be accepted that it's happened, and I don't think there's place for mediation because people have tried it, but what's happened doesn't represent every single St. Pauli fan. Not every single St. Pauli fan is backing the Zionist regime or is backing the genocide. It's certainly not the case, but it's very difficult to see where people can move on. I'm speaking from that as a kind of trying to look at the whole situation. It's very, very difficult. I don't think that'll ever be repaired the way it was. But as you say, there'll still be fans that will come to see Celtic that are still pro-Palestine, etc., or fans that just have been silenced and they can't say anything about it. And it's very hard, but the friendships between individuals rather than the clubs are still there. And I know that people take each other for who they are and have to. I think that damage has been done to the extent just before it happened. The St. Pauli party was going to be taking place, but then it was to be abandoned plannings for it because they felt it wasn't a safe thing to do, and then obviously the situation continued and continued on. So yeah, I don't think that relationship will never come back, um, and I can't see. I mean, the people who put it into place 30 years ago, you know, and the groups that have changed. As fan culture changes as well, other people come to the forefront. So the guys that were writing Ubersteiger, they were the forefront of St. Pauli, and now they've kind of the different generations come in, and it's been very very difficult to see this happen and not to kind of fight back and to say, well, here there's a line in the sand, and it's kind of gone.
Yeah, I've been told that a bar that always had a display the Palestinian flag, chemicals were sprayed into the pub, and the pub was closed for 3 weeks. So no earnings for the people who run the pub. I've heard from St. Pauli fan that, like, you can't mention Palestine, you can't fly a flag. It's like, and I think we saw that in Dortmund. We saw a Celtic fan getting manhandled for having a Palestinian flag. But yeah, it's it is sad the way it's gone, and I know some of the older St. Pauli fans are still travelling to see Celtic.
Yeah, and there's still the I think, but well, back in the day there was never any national flags flown at the stadium, either way. But the fact that it's there's still fans within the group who are still pro-Palestine, who are silenced. There's bigger numbers than you'd expect, but the majority, is, they're kind of silenced, and it's a terrible situation that's happened, and it's very sad how it's going. I have many friends over there who uh, the relationships and friendships are there, and we can't. But in terms of the full club, there won't be a game against Celtic anytime again. I
No,
can't see the Celtic St.
don't
Pauli
think so.
party
No.
coming
Is
back.
is the St. Pauli club in Glasgow gone?
That's gone, yeah. That's gone. They did so much work as well with the helping the choreo for the Dunfermline friendly and fundraising, and it was all they were taking what was that ethos, um, and bringing it into events in Glasgow and Scotland, and it's sad because there's so many people have to say, well, look, we just this can't continue, and that's the disbandment of clubs across the board. Yeah, so I mean, we will still play in Germany, we'll still go and tour in Germany, but we've always been who we are.
Yeah.
I don't know though if I don't know what I don't know how it looked, but we still go and play, and we still would in across the country. But yeah, it's been a very very difficult situation, I think, for everyone really to
And of
handle.
course, Paul, that was probably one of your biggest gigs.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I mean, we did their 100-year anniversary. It was in 2010, and then in 2014, I went and played in Avon Cologne for Fabian Ball's testimonial game in the middle of the pitch when he did his lap of honour. So close to my heart, and that's uh, those memories as well, and the friendships and everything else. And the nights there in the city. That's it's just it's what There's bigger picture is, regardless, you put football to the side, you put anything to the side of the horrific things that we're seeing every day happening in Palestine. Regardless of, you can't, football. There's things are bigger than football, and things take. I'm sitting here complaining that saying before we do this, my kids might be noisy, but my children are upstairs getting ready for bed. They've had a bath. There's running water. They're loved. I'm not picking about the rubble at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
That's the biggest. That's the perception of what's important in life is very very. It's very skewed sometimes when we have all these luxury things. I'm trying to complain about getting my Zoom app updated so I can log into this. There's bigger
I
things than
read an
football, bigger
article
things
with
than
a
anything else.
Palestinian poet who was lucky enough to get out and is in America now. He's actually touring a book, and he got his family out as well. But like, it was in, I think it was in one of the supplements in the Guardian, maybe the G2. But he's like, he talks about, you know he's lost that many members of his family, and his wife's family, that he mentioned someone to his wife the other day, and she says, "Oh, did you not know he died?" Like, it's just a daily occurrence. It's fucking traumatic, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just um. Anyway, um, we spoke about the wakes, Paul. I didn't know where that conversation was going to go with St. Pauli.
Yes, quick.
Oh, you're the front man with the Wakes, in my opinion, one of the finest bands in Glasgow. Certainly the finest Glasgow Irish band, and I don't mean any disrespect to others. Um, Absolutely, um, always a brilliant show, lyrically on the ball. Albums, album after album has been brilliant. Um, but for the listeners who maybe don't know the Wakes, Paul, um, just give us a history of the band, how it all started, ways of played, memorable gigs, and just give us an intro into what you've recorded, the albums was recorded, and
Right. Well, we kind of got together about 2006, 2007, in various forms. I think actually one of our first gigs was in the Squirrel. Um, I had the idea of starting up a band with Joe that was the drummer in Sheridan that had left, and he was working at and he was at college and stuff, and we started playing together. And then Chris Cruikshank came and joined us on the bass. He was playing the flute at the time actually, and then I met James, who was also known as Piro, who played the whistle. Then we got McGinty in the drums, and then my brother wormed his way somehow into the band on the harmonica. But we only had two channels on my desk at the time for the PA, so we'd have to take turns who was playing an instrument at any one time. And then eventually started playing in Falcha quite a lot, and started getting kind of writing stuff. So I wrote the song These Hands about October 2006. We recorded that, and we got an album out quite sharp actually. So 2007, did our first album. It was a kind of like a live album, part live in Falcha and the Hoops, and recorded at home. And then from that we kind of progressed on. But our music was kind of was very much inspired by the Pogues and Christy Moore and the Wolf Tones, and we tried to write sort of songs of the Glasgow Irish, and I suppose with that's your link, the Celtic link came out of that quite a lot too. But not being overtly Celtic, not being still being political, but in a kind of different way from maybe how things had gone before. And we then were writing the stories of the Glasgow Irish with like No Irish in Apply, and songs about the Irish in the south side that built the Clyde tunnels, and then as we were getting more and more travelled, becoming more aware of politics of the left surrounding us, and that's how we kind of started bringing like Bella Ciao into our work, and then we wrote because I love the Blarney Pilgrims. We wrote a Celtic St. Pauli song because we were getting invited out to go and play at the party that year. And we wrote the Pirates of the League, and that helped us grow there. But at the same time, um, we were always kind of trying to progress onto new sort of sounds, and just kind of got a bigger scope with our stuff. So it's kind of funk, punk, folk, folk and roll. We called it eventually in the end. Um, and we've had some great gigs. We played like Damien Dempsey and Billy Bragg, the Men They Couldn't Hang. Played at the Barrowlands, and we're doing King Tut's again this December, 13th of December. It's a Monday. Um, that's become a kind of wee staple thing we've been doing the past 3 years. Played all over Glasgow, London, all across up down England. Do a lot of left wing events, and I think we're maybe two left for mainstream concerts and festivals in the UK. But yeah, we've been successful with a lot of our touring. We toured extensively in Germany, did a lot of touring in France. Certainly put the miles in our formative years, and pretty much, unfortunately, maybe since kind of COVID, things have kind of settled down on the touring front. A lot of bands, not weren't going abroad the way that we used to, and Brexit's maybe been a factor in that as well. But we've been back in writing and recording again just now, starting the process for a new album, which is our first album in nearly 80 years it'll be. So we've been around a lot, we've done a lot of gigs, and we've got seven of us in the band now. It really changed our sound. And my brother was still there, Chris is still there, but Eamon came and joined us in the drums. Danny McGuinness and Conor Markey on the whistle and the banjo mandolin, and Stephen Dowling on the fiddle. So we're pretty much a big force when we're all together, and it's always trying to make our concerts now big and trying rather than doing smaller gigs anymore. We try and when people come to see us, they've had a good night and really seen us on top form.
And did you make a decision earlier on that you weren't going to play pubs, you were going to play venues?
Nah, well, we started doing more festivals and doing more kind of venue places about 2019, 2018. But then because there's so many of us, pubs weren't really looking to take 7 players on this, in the venues, and a lot of the boys have got other projects as well. So Danny and Cora, they're part of the Paul McKenna band, and Danny's in a show called Irish Celtic. So he's away touring. Since lockdown, Chris has become everyone's favourite saxophone player. So Chris is, yeah, it's harder to get hold of. So we just felt that rather than doing little things here and there, let's trying to do bigger things, and that's really one of our so that we really try and do our best to put on a really big night and really build it about that. But I think with pubs and venues, we look for 2 and 3 piece band. It's putting 7 of us in the stages is isn't really possible too often.
And I know, Paul, from trying to bring us over to Ireland, it's logistically hard to get dates that suits everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we do also our wee splinter groups, I suppose. Was if there's 5 of us and 6 of us there, that's so be it. But it's just trying to make the time and get everyone together. We used to do a lot in Ireland as well. That's one time we used to play in Derry all the time. Derry was quite a important place for us because it really it's got a good foothold in there, um, in Ireland. And we did a lot of gigs in Dublin as well, and a lot of few gigs in Belfast, maybe not as many in Belfast to say the from Bethlehem to Belfast and played up there a few times, but certainly did a lot in Derry and just logistically as well, things getting everyone together and kids and all these things that happen and as life goes on and you get older.
And you mentioned a couple of well-known names though. Damien Dempsey, Billy Bragg, the men they couldn't hang. What would they like to play with?
Oh, fantastic. Billy Bragg and Damien Dempsey were really, really good, really nice people to us as well. And a wee bit of kind of hero worship to them both, but Damien came up and when we came into his changing room or his dressing room, he was like, well, what a song Colours is, and I love Glasgow Cross. And then he gave us all big handshakes. He was really, really bigged us up on the stage as well. And Billy Bragg, he was fantastic. He said, talked about how he's done his time, and he said, the future's yours to go out and put the message across there. But they said it's not just about spreading it to people that are going to get it already. It's about converting other people, and they do that through music or you do that through them coming to see you. That's such an important thing too.
Yeah, especially now with the far right
Oh yeah,
springing up, especially in Ireland. It's had Brendan Ogle, trade unionist, on the podcast last week, and we asked for Brendan's opinion. A big Celtic man, and yeah, he'd a few choice words to say to people who cling on to the tricolour and even Celtic jerseys who have these views.
yeah,
Well, if you haven't listened to that, Paul, I'd recommend you. Brendan's a great guy. It was another one that kind of never got on during COVID either. Like, if you, it does, because I thought I had everybody on, and then you start going, well, I've had him, and I've had him. And sometimes I actually thought when I said, did I have Paul on the podcast before? Because we've spoke so many times, but we never recorded anything. We've had some
yeah.
conversations in cars as well, up and down to the airport. Um, Paul, earlier this year, back in January, I organised a tribute night to Shane MacGowan, just really to like he died on the 30th of November and his anniversary is coming up. Um, but then you had Christmas and bars and venues were full. So it wasn't until the end of January that I got a date that was suitable. And I invited you over, and I invited a couple of local musicians who would have enjoyed Shane's music and be influenced by him. And I put out I sent a little note to all the musicians to pick 3 songs, to pick some songs what they were going to perform, and they sent me back 3 songs each. You sent me back 36 songs, and you said, and if there's anything not on the list you want me to do, I might have to look at the lyrics again. Incredible. You had the Shane MacGowan songbook. How do you remember all these songs?
Um, I think I love the Pogues, and I've been listening to the Pogues probably maybe I get the Pogues a bit later on than I did with other songs, but I know like hundreds of songs, and then it was only when you made me sit down and think, right, what would I play that night? That I realised, geez, oh, I didn't count them, but I don't know how I remember shit because they're so. I think with the Shane MacGowan songs, when I close my eyes, he's telling a story each time, and I think when I started writing songs, I wanted songs to take you on a journey. I didn't want throwaway lyrics, and Shane MacGowan's lyrics, I'll never ever match them. But it's like a story or a script almost. The things that he talks about, the things that he sings about in each song, how deep they go. Um, you know, and they're almost like little movies. And it's even better when you read into the song because when you read into the song and you realise who he's referring to. See, I think the first one I learned was A Pair of Brown Eyes. And it's like this anti-war song. And it wasn't till about 2 years later that I was talking to Big Pat Bonner and he said, you know who Ray and Philomena are? And I said, no, he went, it's Ray. It's Philomena Begley. He's singing about Ray and Philomena sang of My Illicit Dream. That's Philomena Begley and Ray. What's Ray's last name again? Can't remember, but that's what he's talking about in that song. And then you've got there's like so I think finding reading or learning those songs, just sitting playing them, listening to the songs was so easy to because it just settles into my psyche, I suppose. Um, it might be some hidden superpower, I don't know, but it's just the songs you just pick up on, and once have that knowledge of them or you know them, without sitting script reading, not at all. You just absorb Shane MacGowan songs. Same with Christy Moore, actually. Brilliant.
And on that night, I remember we went in. Ronan was doing the sound, who produces this podcast. Um, I think Ronan grew up and sang as well that night. Um, you 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 then decided to write out your set list. Um, with black marker and a piece of paper. And I remember my good friend Baz on your shoulder, and he was watching every song that was going down, and his face. He was he because he's a massive Pogues fan, massive Shane fan. Baz would have drank in the Devonshire, the same pub as the Pogues, in Camden at the back. He walked in Sainsbury's and the Devonshire Arms is if you come out the back of Sainsbury's, the first pub you'll meet is the Devonshire Arms, and famous for sessions with Shane MacGowan and that in that pub. As a lot of pubs, Shane would have had sessions in. And you performed Public Enemy #1 that night as well, which is about McGlinchey getting shot, and that's actually that's beside my house. And I remember when he was shot that night, and I can still reenact in my head the superintendent on the TV that night, the interview. Um, and it's just funny. Like we would have passed on the way to the pub that night, at the venue, and this song is, and no one would have really realised that in the pub that night. It was just a great night, and like Eugene Cavan, another guy, another massive Shane fan. It was great to see him there and that, and Shane's music, just it means so much to so many people, and probably the best funeral I was never at. I watched on TV, and that was Shane's funeral. The
Yeah.
music, the incredible, he was as comfortable with a wino as he was with a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm listening to one of his books again on audio now while I'm walking, and Jesus, some of the things you forget, especially about his childhood and that. What a,
Yeah.
what, what a life he lived.
Have you read A Drink with Shane MacGowan? Is that the one you're listening
Oh
to at
no,
all?
it's
No?
it's
Excellent. It's very, very good. It's his wife. He's part of Victoria. It's just an interview with him, 1-to-1, but it's so funny and deep, and you can hear his voices as he's telling a story. My friend Andy Nolan, played at Shane's funeral. He played the accordion because
Aye.
he played with Shane in the Popes for years as well when he was a youngster. His second
Is
band.
he in the Bible Called Sundays? No.
Yes, he's just actually, yeah, he was the Biblical Sundays, yeah.
The
But
book is called A Furious Devotion: The Life of Shane MacGowan.
brilliant.
And
Oh,
the
he's
he
wonderful.
was like like he was in it. I suppose is later just by listening to the introduction from the author, like he's saying, like it was so hard to get. He had to hang out with Shane, and he might be waiting days for Shane to tell him something that he could turn the tape on. So you can imagine you can imagine the and he said like he says he loved all the gangster movies and he was annoyed one night because he disturbed him while he was watching The Godfather. He'd
Oh,
asked him
really?
a question. So just credible character and um I probably had too much drink when Shane died. I probably I probably drowned my sorrows more than anyone that wasn't family. Like it was certainly me. Myself and Baz had a couple of good. We didn't need much excuses, but we had a couple of good drinks and. When we were DJing, we were just, it was very hard not to play the Pogues over and over again. So if you
Yeah.
weren't a Pogues fan, you probably were disappointed on a couple of nights.
But his stuff was brilliant. I think it's been so influential for bands that then followed because without the Pogues, you don't have bands like Flogging Molly and Dropkick Murphys and that whole punk, which is massive in the continent. That's one thing that was good for the Wakes because the folk punk scene is massive abroad, and that's what we did a lot of our stuff with bands across Europe, and meeting sort of bands like ourselves, who that kind of vibe, the folk punk, etc. But my wife and I, our first dance was a rain night in Soho, and it's there's a bit of shame. There should be a bit of shame for everyone. Everyone should have a one Pogue song, regardless of who you are. You don't have to like them, listen to them 24/7. But everyone should have in their life one Pogue song that they love.
Yeah,
Make it mandatory because it's
I,
brilliant.
but I think if people have never heard the Pogues, they'll sing them at Christmas every Christmas.
That's it. Even if it's Fairy Tale New York, which is a wonderful movie, and also like Once Upon a Time in America, that it takes the hook from that. That's from that movie, and you hear it after having heard the song for so many years and then watching the movie again, and every time it came in, you get a wee tickle in the back of your, the
But
back of your
he's a
neck.
massive. Listen to that book. He's a massive gangster movie fan.
Yeah,
You know, violent movies. He loves violent movies. Um, but like, yeah, we've all got memories of seeing them as well. And you have a nice memory because you actually got backstage with them.
yes. Now that was 2003, I think, and I would see them with it was the Popes that were playing. So Alan from Shabina was watching the the Pope's playing. I looked up and I saw Alan on the stage, and I was like going shouting from the crowd, "How'd you get up there?" And because I wasn't with him, I was with my brother and Paddy Campbell and a girl I was seeing at the time, and Alan very kindly. It was through Tom McAnimal who knew Andy Nolan, and Alan got us in, and then when I went up to the side of the stage, it was just before the encore. They walked off. Shane handed me his empty can, took my full can of Tennent's out of my hand, walked back on. Then when I went backstage, he was covered in Doritos sauce, and he was sitting just in a chair that I got to sit and have the crack with him. But the person I was with it was phoning me, so the picture that I've got of the two of us is Shane McGowan's answering their phone, and he's going, "Hey, you're funny. Tell me, fuck off. Who's the fuck?" And the girls, they was shouting, "Who's that? Who's that on the phone? Purple." And he just handed me, "Oh, you're funny. Don't have a anymore." I handed it over, and I had to make my excuses and leave, and that was wonderful, brilliant. I think I get told by a guy that the next day they were flying to Kate Moss's 30th birthday party, and Shane McGowan got refused entry to the plane and had to drive down to London. That's
That's
what they're going
surprising.
after.
there's some great stories about Shane. My brother was coming home. He was working for a bank in London, and he was in the very back seat at the window, CityJet and Shane got on with the Mrs. Victoria, and she sat on the outside, and Shane sat in the middle, and fell asleep on my brother's shoulder, but promptly woke up when the bar cart was rattling by, polished off 3 wines and a couple of Baileys, and went back asleep on my brother's shoulder. He was
Brilliant.
on the Late Late Show that night.
Oh, really?
So that's my brother's. That was my brother's story meeting him. There's been like some some great people have told me, stories of bumping into him, and going way back like to the Nips, and and of course, Nicky Stewart, Nick McCool as we call him, first man to bring the Pogues to Glasgow, and we'll have to
Yeah.
get Nick on the podcast because that's a story, that's a podcast in itself.
Oh, yeah.
He brought him to a pub called, I think it was called the Mucky Duck for 2 nights.
Out in shots. That's out
Elvis
by shots.
Costello arrived up and was going out with Kate O'Riordan at the time, who was playing bass. Oh no, was married to her, and walked up to the bouncers, and the bouncer said, tenner or a fiver or whatever. And he said, you know who I am? I'm Elvis Costello. They said, look, give a fuck if you're Elvis Presley. You're paying the same as the rest of every. And he had to pay in to see his missus, So like, um, brilliant. And Nick was worried they weren't going to turn up because from the time he'd kind of booked them, he travelled to London and Manchester to see them. And from the time he'd booked them, the album had come out, the first album, and they weren't playing pubs.
Mhm.
And but luckily a gig was cancelled the night before. So they turned up the night before, so we had them in the pub overnight. So,
Yeah, captives then.
and they played 2 nights. I think the police was called, and because there's so many people that come to see them. There was so many people outside the pub. But yeah, I remember they tell me that over an iron brew in McCool's. Just another brilliant story about Shane and the Pogues.
Yeah. I think as well, obviously they came from the punk scene and McGowan's, a complete punk. That was the Nips and bands. He was the face of punk in 1976. I think on the Face magazine, he was a known punk in London. There's photos of him with the Union Jack t-shirt and different things kicking about.
I
He
think
was
I
off.
think Shane done one of the fanzines as well.
Yes, he did. That's right, and he was very much part of that whole movement, and so that influenced then how the Pogue sound was. So it wasn't just it wasn't just the sound of the Clancy's or the Dubliners. It was the Clancy's and the Dubliners getting thrown down the stairs with drums and beats and everything else. And it just they kind of grew and progressed with their own style of music as well. And the Pogues and this this very distinguished, sorry, very distinguished in terms of the instantly identifiable genre of music. And Nicky continues to champion bands with his position in McCool's and pushes for new music and a wonderful kind of full circle continues to this day.
Yeah, yeah. And the final story, Paul, from over here, um, he's the president of the supporters club down in Tipperary. Um, Brian Hogan, CSC, I think, and the association were having a meeting and a gig, and who turned up? He was in the bar, Shane, and they got him in, and he got up with the band and played with the band, done a few numbers, you know, and other people from Dublin have been lucky enough to travel down to the house. Lads I know who through the pub, the owner of the pub got them to the house, and they sat down, and they sat in the company of Shane MacGowan for an evening in his house, beside the fire. How how incredible would that be? But um, Shane is gone sadly. The Pogues, I think, three of them are doing a concert. I think in Point Apple or whatever it's called now, in Dublin before Christmas. I think it's Spider. I think Kate might be playing. Someone else. I think the drummers. I don't think the drummers too well. Um, and then obviously the others have passed away. Um, but we're going to do another little tribute to Shane. Paul, you're coming back to Drogheda on Saturday, February the 1st. So put that in the diary, folks. To once again celebrate the life, times, crimes, and songs of the legendary Shane MacGowan. The venue is the Purple Room. It's a bigger room than the last time, so no pressure, Paul, to fill it. Um, Tickets will go on sale soon. I just need to sit down with the venue and sort out what ticket platform they're going to put them out on. And I suppose we'll probably call it Paul Sheridan sings the Shane MacGowan songbook.
Aye, that's a good ring to it.
From the Pogues to the Popes. And like I'm looking forward to it. Sandra's looking forward to it. Baz is looking forward to it. So it's one that we haven't advertised yet, but this is breaking news on the podcast that Paul's coming back. And I'm really looking forward to that. Um, you said about your dance and people having the favorite Shane MacGowan song. Um, I want two from you, right? I want one that you love performing, and one that your favorite.
Shane MacGowan songs or
Shane
anything
or
like Shane,
the Pogues or the Pops.
Pogues. Um, oh, geez, we recorded some good recordings of some Body of an American and Redneck Soho, which we recorded a few years ago. You find that on the Rebel Collective on Spotify, actually. A version of that if you want to link it in the show notes. She's about to play. Do you know I love playing the band played Walks of Matilda, and it's a Pogues song that they covered by Eric Bogle, but I love playing that. And it's such a deep song. Probably in terms of a Shane MacGowan song written by him, then it might be something like "If I Should Fall from Grace with God." That's it, definitely. "If I Should Fall from Grace," written by the Pogues. I love the violence of it. I love um the song itself, the beat to it. Um, the lyrics are excellent. It's this the the screams which you try to mimic Shane's. It's just a great song lyrically. It's if I should fall in grace with God, that's definitely up there.
Yeah, and obviously he's been to Celtic Park. He came out on the pitch. There's legendary stories of his recording in Glasgow the night before the game. I think it was I can't think of his name, but he played with Crooked Reel, Baldy guy. He played
Uh,
mandolin. He played mandolin with him, and he said they were up all night with him because they went to the pub all day. And when the pub closed, he said, "Right, let's go to the recording studio."
yeah, was it Johnny Gillespie?
Um,
It was Johnny. It was the Gillespies and Frank Breen. They were
it
they
was
were
the B
Crooked Reel.
side of that guy that knocks
But
about with Rod Stewart.
best day of our lives. Those were the best days. And it's
B
the
side of that, or the
yeah
double A side was shit,
yeah
wasn't it?
yeah.
And he
I
came out
had
on the
got I had
pitch
that
that day
CD
with the
actually.
scarf. Brilliant. But my earliest memory of Shane MacGowan and Celtic is '88, the centenary season. Front row of the gig. If you watch it on YouTube, um, the greatest gig I've ever seen the Pogues doing. You know, I've watched it over and over and over again. Um, Town and Country Club, St Patrick's Day,
Oh yeah.
1988, tricolours, centenary jerseys, and jerseys weren't a big thing back then. Like you certainly didn't wear them out for a social occasion, but they started to come a kind of a fashion accessory in the late '80s, and the centenary jersey is so iconic. But when I look back, the guest musicians on the night: Joe Strummer from the Clash, Kirsty MacColl, Linville Golding from the Specials, and as someone who loves ska and has heard you singing a message to you, Rudy, in McCool's actually. Um, when I seen the Pogues with Linville Golding and his brass section joining their brass section, and Kirsty doing the backing vocals, and they done a message to you, Rudy. I was living in a flat at the time, and like I was living in a flat in the '90s, and that video every Saturday night when we come back from the pub, that video went on, and it was fast forwarded to the Joe Strummer stuff, the Kirsty stuff. Just I've just saw much, and before the interview, I watched it again before I came in to interview. because it's up there with probably one of the greatest concerts that ever happened. You know what I mean? In my
Yeah.
opinion, and the fact that happened, it was full of Irish in London,
Yes.
the greatest London Irish band ever.
Well, I think if you link back to what we're talking about with Celtic earlier on, how important the music is that Celtic fans, the importance of the Irish song, the fact that the Irish diaspora across the world took their songs with them, and Celtic was a way of connection as well. Those for those who were out of Scotland and out of Ireland, who were living in America, who were living in London, who didn't get the chance to be together apart from things like watching the Celtic at 3 a.m. in a pub in the Bronx, or or going to a gig and wearing the hoops, and that instantly recognisable that friendship that you have with a complete stranger, linked only through the team that you love or the music that you love. That all kind of comes together, and that brings that full circle again. Um, and I had that video, the Town and Country Club, on DVD actually, and
Fancy.
and then years later, discovering there was also the Joe Strummer, the album when Joe Strummer sang with the Pogues, and Shane MacGowan was not there, which is two of my favourite, things. I love the Clash, love the Pogues, but Joe Strummer performing full London Calling, and then doing If I Should Fall, Streams of Whiskey, all the Pogue songs. Because in that one he does, I think he just does in that one he does London Calling, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he does something else as well, does
It's
he?
something, yeah. But it's aye, so that's I think seeing that there's a great importance in how the Irish diaspora, where we go, we celebrate the land that makes us refugees. Um, that's bringing that together, that community, thousands of miles away from home, and that's what the Pogues did every single time that they went away to play.
Yeah, incredible. I'm getting goose pimples talking about him because he's just such a and like Joe Strummer gone, Jesse McCall gone, Shane MacGowan gone. Um, Linva Golding is still here. But the singer of his band, Terry Hall. John Bradbury, the drummer. It's just like it seems that like, all the music I grew up with. There's not many's kicking about. Oh, the Paul Weller in the Barrowlands recently, night before the Leipzig game. You know, Paul, and he's just organised a big gig in the Brixton Academy for Palestine. I see the
Yeah.
lineup. Kneecap, Paul Weller. Who else on that lineup? Do you see who else is on that lineup?
Danny, we were talking about it last night at rehearsal. Paul Weller, Kneecap, and Danny was mentioning it. I've totally forgotten. I
Just,
know.
I looked there earlier on and I went, wow, lucky Brixton.
Yeah. I mean, Kneecap are they're the new. They're kind of, in some ways, they're taking the Irish culture abroad as well, infusing it with hip hop, infusing it with how many young people are living their lives, etc. But they're taking the political message and getting through barriers that you could never have thought
And the
that.
language.
And the
No,
language, taking
Irish
Irish
language.
language into Glastonbury main stage that you could never have thought of happening 20, 30 years ago. I think that, I'm not going to see them next Sunday. If a ticket comes up, I'll happily grab one, but I don't think that's the case. But either I think they're brilliant. They're so important, I think, for pushing culture and pushing the Irish language, which was demonised and hid for so long.
The night you played in Drogheda last year, Eugene had come in with a kneecap hat on. He'd been to see them, and we were. I don't know if you remember. We were asking him, was it good? And he said, surprisingly, yeah. He went with his son. Eugene would be in his 60s, like and he smiled and said, yeah, it was surprisingly good. So when they played Electric Picnic, I went to see them to see what the commotion was all about. And I spoke actually with Paddy McMenamin on the podcast a couple of weeks. Paddy's 70 and he went to the film. He loved it, man. But I went to see them, and yeah, you could the energy there was 8,000 in the tent. The energy they created was now that was the same tent the Wolf Tones were in the previous year. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kneecap are on the main stage next year.
Mhm.
Incredible. It was an incredible performance. The biggest mistake I made was I went in early and was up the front. I would have liked to be standing a bit more to the side or to the back. But it was great. Paul, I've kept you long enough. But all my guests have to climb into the Celtic Soul time machine and take us back, in time to a game or a moment, um, or a time in your Celtic supporting life. But because you're a musician, I also want you to take us. So I wanted to do the Celtic, but I also wanted to take us back to a gig you performed at and one you attended at. You attended a gig you attended. So start with this football stuff first.
Um, a moment at Celtic might be for me when Celtic came out in the tunnel in Seville. Bittersweet, but I was the You Never Walk Alone as they came out. I was lucky enough to be there, and that was where I felt I was 22 at the time. My dad watched Celtic win the European Cup when he was 22. He watched it on a black and white TV in Coatbridge, and I felt a real moment of this could be that crowning that in terms of Celtic's pinnacle since then. Sadly, obviously, it wasn't to be. But that moment, I think when he came out, there was such a belief and such a just willing them on, like I don't think I've ever done before or since. Just deep from your heart, you were thanking and praying everything that was going on with all the emotion, and then the tears running down my face watching everyone singing their vocal and couldn't believe it were here at that point. Stopping the 10, that was a massive moment as well. Listening to that in the radio, unfortunately. That's the only way we were able to access it back in '97. I didn't have a ticket for the game. Um, Beating Liverpool away in that same run to Seville. I think it's so hard to find one tiny single moment. If you can take all those elements, then certainly that's you think the 6-2 game as well. Geez, I'm right in the spot if I think what I could pin one thing on. I don't want to cop out, but I find it so hard just to think of one single thing that I could put it on. Um, I'm going to bring it into the band. See when we clinched the treble for the on the Brendan Rodgers and Invincible season. We were down at a festival in England called Strummer Camp. We were having to watch it on Eamon Maguire's phone because they wouldn't play it on the big screens because it was the FA Cup final. We're huddled round as a band, arms round each other, watching Logic burst through, take the goal, take the ball, and slide it into the goals, and we just erupted, and we were just this tiny corner, going absolutely mental, and it was a great moment. The Invincible season. Paul Gillespie said the next day, "You'll never get that ever again." So it would be we'll never get that again. But I think is that kind of camaraderie, friendship, bringing it together, and then just the explosion of emotion at the end was. I'll take that as my Celtic moment for this time.
Incredible, incredible to think that it's around Eamon's phone and not in Seville.
Oh, I tiny,
That
tiny.
that's
I'm going to go
magic,
back just that moment of friendship. The Seville was something else, but there was the sadness at Seville. It's always tinged with what could have been. But that moment there was we've done it. It was phenomenal, brilliant. What a feeling.
Right, so two more to set, two more dance before we finish, right?
Right, okay. Um,
The
I'll
best gig
take
you performed at, or your favorite gig?
favorite gig I performed at. Do you know we did? The Barrowlands was pretty special. We did the Barrowlands 2023. Last year, last August. That was great. That was and the moment that I'll take from that was there's a line in the song we wrote 8:30 Glasgow Cross, and it said there's a concert in the Barrowlands and the music fills the room, and lovers kiss in the corner smells of cheap beer and perfume. But that one there's a concert in the Barrowlands and the music fills the room. We all kind of just stopped a wee bit, and the whole crowd went mental, and then we went back into the song. That was a great moment. So I'll take that as the best gig to perform.
And of course, the video was recorded outside the Barrowlands.
That's right. Yes, that's right. In the time before, but I'll take it as my best gig to perform that. Best gig to have attended? Is that your other question?
Yeah.
Um, do you know what? I'll go into an uplifting gig. It's one of my favourite gigs, and for a different reason, is going to see Frightened Rabbit. Um, Frightened Rabbit, my friend Scott was a singer. Scott sadly died um, in 2018. But maybe Frightened Rabbit at the Barrowlands 2010, the night of the heavy, heavy, heavy snow in Glasgow that just took everything to a standstill. Because I look back at that gig and I see so much of my friendship and my love for my friend that sadly died. Um, and Frightened Rabbit were a fantastic band, and I'll put that as my favourite gig to have been to. Just about the moment, about everything, we to walk to there and walk home because of the snow. It was a great gig, great show, and I'll, as a friend I'll love forever, and I'll sadly never see again.
May you rest in peace. Paul, thank you so much. I'm sure I will see you before the gig in Drogheda. But thank you very much for bearing your Celtic soul to us.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me on. It's been wonderful.
Thanks very much, Paul, for taking the time to chat to us. I know you're a busy man with your teaching job, two young children to look after. So thanks very much for taking the time out to chat to us. And I hope the wife's not mad at me for keeping you chatting offline as well. Uh, folks, I should say, please share the podcast. It doesn't cost anything. And if you're listening on audio, just give us a shout out or leave a review or whatever. If you can, I know time and it can be hard, and also leave us a comment on the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is slow enough. The audio, for some reason, maybe it's the age group. I know I'm an audio man when I'm out walking Henrik or when I'm driving in the car, and I'm not as active on YouTube as probably I should be. But if you like and subscribe, that would be great. And if you share the content, even better. So thanks very much for that. And if you enjoyed the podcast and you want to listen back to a couple, similar to the Paul one, can I recommend Charlie Feely from the Blarney Pilgrims, Bobby Bluebell from the Bluebells, and Derry singer-songwriter Declan McLaughlin. Three really good episodes, and I think you'll enjoy. And you'll find them on YouTube as well as on all the platforms. So we do go out on Acast, but you'll get us on Apple, Spotify, and so forth. And if you're having trouble listening, just log on to the website, celticfanzine.com. You'll find all the audio and all the videos there. Tickets for Paul Sheridan in the Purple Room in Drogheda will go on sale soon. We just need to finalise stuff with the venue. We're really looking forward to the gig and hearing Paul do the Shane MacGowan songbook. Anyone that was at the gig last year will know it's a treat. As we head now for the first anniversary of Shane's passing. What a man, what a legend, what a poet, what a singer, what a songwriter. Just, incredible. And I'm sure we'll talk about Shane as the episodes go on. Special thanks to Ronan for producing the podcast and for Dan for doing the video editing. Thanks, boys. Much appreciated. And as I said, after the win last Sunday at Rugby Park, all football turns now to internationals. By the time you listen to this podcast, we'll have been up to the Aviva to see Ireland playing Finland. Hopefully, we'll be celebrating a win. We don't get that much to celebrate at the moment, being Ireland fans. And then it's on to Wembley on Sunday, where Ireland take on the English. That should be tasty. Locally, I'm in the Cross on Friday night, spinning the tunes if anyone's about. And then the Drugs. The Drugs head for Tallaght Stadium to take on Bray in the relegation promotion playoffs. So best of luck to the Drugs again. I'm sure the fans will be travelling in big numbers again. So folks, enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Enjoy your weekend. Keep the feedback coming in, and hail hell. Thank you.